Good evening and welcome to Lourly Online. I hope y'all have had a great day. Beautiful weather, little chilly, but beautiful weather today. And again, I hope y'all are doing the safe practices, making sure that you are social distancing, but at the same time calling people, letting people know that you love them, you're concerned with them. Um, if for some reason the video is not playing, you may have to refresh the page. But then again, if the video is not playing, you're not hearing this. So I just completely wasted my breath. But anyhow, tonight is going to be our Wednesday night prayer meeting. So if you have any prayer requests that you need us to pray for, if you can go down, there's a couple different ways. You can post it to, if you're part of our discussion group, you can post it in our discussion group. If you're not, you can go down on the website to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the website where it says prayer request. Fill that out, submit it, and all the prayer requests that I get from the website, I will put a post in our group so that we can all be praying for that. I'll be praying for you. And anytime that you have a prayer request, you can take advantage of that on our website at LourlyFBC.com, and we can pray for you. If you're watching this on Facebook later, you can put it in the comments. If you're watching it on YouTube and you have prayer requests, you can drop those in the comments as well. So how about Easter Sunday night? That was crazy. I'm going to tell you, there is nothing. The tornado sirens here in this town are eerie enough. You know, when it's like the daytime and we know that they're drills, but there is very few things that are more eerie than hearing those tornado sirens going off and knowing that there is actually a tornado coming. Very eerie. But you know, God protected us. God had His hand over us. God protected us, kept us safe, and I'm so thankful for that. I thank y'all so much for y'all's responsiveness in the group, as you know, after the fact, after the two tornadoes came through, and how y'all, you know, as I was checking in, everybody was, yeah, I'm okay. That really put my heart at ease. To know that you know, my flock is okay, and everybody's okay. But tonight or today, this week especially, that is where the center of our praise should be. Is just, God, thank you for having mercies on us. Thank you so much for protecting us and having your hand of protection on us. And we read in last night for Cade's devotion, we read where Elisha is kind of hiding out, and a king from another nation comes to try to arrest him, and his army surrounds this city, and Elisha's servant comes out and he's like, dude, they have us surrounded. What are we going to do? And Elisha's just like, yeah, don't worry about it. Those that are with us outnumber those that are with them. And Elisha's servant's like, you know, what are you talking about? And Elisha prays, like, God, open his eyes so he can see. And at that moment, Elisha's servant's eyes was open to the spiritual warfare in the spiritual realm, and he could see the angel armies, that there was a human army surrounding the city, and surrounding them was an angel army, an army of angels that was dispatched to protect Elisha during this time, and this army became blind and could not take him captive. And that was last night for Cade's devotion, and I think of that like with the limb falling on our house, because we were in the bathroom, we didn't even hear it. We didn't even hear the limb hit our house. And I told Cade, or I think Tammy might have told Cade, and I was like, it was almost like an angel just caught that thing and laid it down, because it didn't even tear up our power line. It landed right on the power line to our house. It didn't tear it up. And so, I mean, it hit the house. It had to have hit the house softly, because I didn't even hear it hit the house. It's still connected to the tree. But it's God just had His hand of protection on all of us, I believe, and so thankful for that. We do have today. This lesson tonight is going to be pretty short because today I have kind of been trying to help out, trying to get. We've got a family that's been displaced because of the tornado. They have lost everything. They've got several kids, and so we're going to be trying to help them out and trying to get some things together for them. She has to work tomorrow, and so we're going to get her some stuff so she can go to work tomorrow. But we've been kind of getting that together, and as we find out more needs for this family, we're going to get those posted exactly what they need. I posted some things earlier, but then I was able to talk to the lady a little bit more, and she says that a lot of the stuff for her kids and her husband, those needs have been met, and it's really stuff for her that she needs. And so actually right now Tammy is out kind of helping her out with that, and so we're meeting needs as a church, and I'm sure there's going to be more needs that are coming up that are going to that we're going to need to meet as a church. What I may do is I may in our if you go to the top of the website and on the right hand side at the top of the website it says give, and you can click on that, and I may put a designator in there for relief for the tornado victims, that if you want to give specifically for tornado victims, you can do that, so we can get a little fund going so that we can help them. But anyhow, I hope y'all are having a great week. If you have prayer requests, like I said, go down to the bottom of the webpage where it says prayer request and fill it out, submit it, and we'll get to praying about that. Again, I hope that everything is going good. If you need to contact us for any reason, you can contact us through that prayer request thing as well. You can go to our Facebook page and leave a comment on something and contact us that way. We are going to continue tonight our series on a very good marriage. And what that means is a marriage that whenever God created, well, first off, I want to bring up that this is coming out of the book. I'm getting much of the source material from this book by Joel R. Beek and James LaBelle, Living a Godly Marriage. And again, whenever I get this on Facebook, I'm going to have a link to it in our Facebook page where if you want to buy the book, you can buy it. It's really, really good. And again, Joel Beek is a guy that I got the privilege to meet and introduced to him when we were at the homeschool conference, and he taught one of our little sessions, little breakout sessions that we went to, and just really, really good. He did a really fantastic job, and it impressed me the way that everything was laid out, and so I wanted to kind of bring some of that back home. And again, Wednesday night, what we try to do here on Wednesday nights is be very applicable, have stuff that is stuff that we can apply to our lives, and that's what I try to bring on Wednesday nights. Is stuff that you can use, taking the Word of God from the pages to actually our lives. And what better way than talking about marriage, talking about this. And what we're talking about having a very good marriage is how that marriage was an institution that God ordained, and it was part of a creation that He called very good. And so marriage is something that from the beginning of time, on day 6, before sin, before the fall of man, before any of this, God has ordained marriage. God creates marriage, and God looks at it. Every single day when God created something, He would say, "Oh, this is good. This is good. This is good. This is good." But on day 6, His finished creation, He said, "Oh, this is very good. This all is very good. And marriage was a part of that. And so what we're looking at in this study is how do we have that very good marriage, the type of marriage that is the way God intended marriage to be. And that's what we're looking at. That's what we're striving for. That's what we want in our marriages, is to have that kind of very good marriage, have the kind of marriage that honors God and honors our spouse. And it's the kind of marriage that we can look back over our times and just say, this has been the greatest blessing of my life. And that is what we want from this. That's what we're going to look at in this study, and we're going to continue looking at. So let's jump back into it. Come on now. So how can we have that very good marriage? And so tonight we're going to be talking about the purpose of marriage. Why? What's the purpose? What's the purpose of marriage? What was the intended purpose of marriage? When God instituted marriage, what was its purpose, and what became its purpose after the fall of man? So God originally created marriage with two purposes. These two purposes are companionship and procreation. Those were the original two reasons that God created marriage, was for companionship and procreation. Then, after sin entered the world, a third purpose was realized, and this is to help people from fornicating. So let's dig in right now about companionship and how companionship is a purpose of marriage. So in Genesis 2:18 it says, "And the Lord said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him." So in Genesis 2:18, God looks at everything that He has made, and I brought this up last week. God looks at everything that He has made, and He has said, "Oh, this is good. This is good. This is good. This is good." And then He gets to man, and He sees this, and for the first time, God goes, "Wait a minute. This isn't good. It's not good that he's by himself. He needs a companion." And this verse says he needs a companion that is comparable to him. You see the animals, they're not comparable to him. The beasts of the field are not comparable to him. Even the angels are not comparable to him. Man is made in the image of God. Genesis says that He made them in His own image, or they made him in their own image. And so nothing else is made in the image of God, and therefore it's not compatible. It's not comparable. To have something that is comparable to man, it has to be something else that is also made in the image of God. And so the companionship, to have this companionship, to make this companionship work, Adam needed a companion that was comparable to him. And that is when God created woman. And God created woman to be the companion of man, and man to be the companion of woman. And it's neat about how God does this. You read, and He takes a rib from Adam, and from that rib He forms Eve. And something that is said in the book, it says that it would be better off for Adam to be missing parts, or missing a part, than to be alone. And how important Eve was to him. And it's also been said that God took Eve out of Adam's rib so that she would be next to him, not out of his foot so that she would be under him, and not out of his head so she would be over him, but out of his rib so that she would be side by side and next to him, and this companion for Adam. And so I want to talk about, we want to dig into the companionship aspect of marriage, and why companionship is this purpose of marriage. But before we dig into that, I want to also kind of touch on something else, and something else that the book touches on quite a bit, is that it's okay to be single. It's okay to have a life of celibacy. And God doesn't require us to be married. Paul the Apostle was never married. And this worked out for Paul. It worked out for Paul because he was always on the go. He was always traveling. He was always on these missionary journeys. And there was really nothing holding him back. There was nothing. He did not have a family where he would go, man, if something happens to me, who's going to take care of them? That was never an issue with Paul, and so it worked out in Paul's benefit. And really, it boils down to, what are you called to? If you are called to a life of celibacy, if you are called to a life of being single, then God is going to fulfill you in that. I'm sure that Paul was fulfilled in his life of being single. And so if that's what God has called you to, then you'll be satisfied in it. And God will sustain you in that. And however, most of us, I would say, are probably not going to be called to that kind of life. Most of us are going to be, and Paul even will say that the celibacy and the singleness, the life of singleness, is a gift, that he has the ability to be able to live this life of singleness and celibacy without the desire of being married, without the desire of this type of companionship. And so Paul calls it a gift. And so if God hasn't given you the gift of celibacy or singleness, of being able to, that's going to be your life, his intention for you is companionship. And there's, you say, well, I don't know, man. I don't know if there's anybody out there. If you're single, anytime you're single and it's not your gift to be single, do you desire that companionship? It's natural to go, I don't know if God does have somebody out there for me, if I'm just going to be single and lonely my whole life. Relax. God has somebody for you. There's a companion for you. If you're watching this and you're going, man, I don't know why I'm watching a series about marriage and I'm single, and I'm looking and I'm so lonely. Relax. God has somebody for you. Now, if you're watching and saying, I'm single and I'm perfectly fine being single and I don't think I'll ever get married, then that you might have the gift of singleness. You might have the gift of celibacy. And there are some benefits to that, especially as far as ministry work. The only person you have to worry about is you. But again, that's not for everybody. And this is more of a lesson about, or this is a series about marriage. And that's what I really want to talk about, is the purpose. God looks at Adam and says, this isn't good that he's by himself. And for most people, it's not going to be good to be by yourself. And God's going to have a companion for you, or God has given you a companion in your spouse. And that companionship is important. And it's important that we practice that companionship. It's important that we realize, it's important for your marriage to realize that companionship is one of the reasons you get married. One of the reasons that God has a person to enter into a marriage is for that companionship. And so that to have a healthy marriage, you have to have companionship. Well, we're married, of course we have companionship. Well, what I'm talking about is we have to strive as couples not to have a two-story life. And that old song by George Jones and Tammy Wynette is kind of what I'm referring to here, the two-story house. And the song is basically they strive to they strive to make enough money where they can afford a two-story house, but now they have a two-story life where she has her story and he has his story, and they live in a two-story house and they've earned what they've tried to earn, but they live two separate lives. And that's not companionship, and that's not what God intended marriage to be. God did not intend on two people to live in the same house or to be legally bound but have separate lives. He intended for companionship. And one of the things that I would tell whenever I was in law enforcement and I was training rookies, especially in a job like law enforcement, where you work 12-hour shifts, and it's hard on the family because at 7 o'clock your shift starts at 6:45, and you end your shift at 7 and don't get home until a lot of times at 8, and you're gone for 14 hours in a day. Most days whenever I worked, I didn't see Tammy. Tammy wasn't home from work by the time I was leaving from work, and by the time I got home from work, she had already left. And there would be 2 or 3 days right there in a row where we didn't even see each other because of our shifts. And then when I was on day shift, I would be gone from work before she got up, and then I would be getting home from work after we had put Cade to bed. And so it's a strain. That work schedule was a strain on a marriage, and a strain on how much time we spend together. And something I would always tell rookies, I was like, listen, this is going to be hard on your wife, or this is going to be hard on your husband. And so whenever you get home, whenever it's your days off, you can't be off golfing with your buddies. You can't be off, if you have this job where while you're working, you're not seeing your spouse, you've got to make sure you're very intentional on companionship when you do have that time. And I'm going to tell you, that is something, God intended marriage for companionship. And so one of the first things that to have this type of companionship, and to have a companionship in a marriage, that's the first place where we've got to work. We've got to work on spending time together. We've got to find hobbies that we enjoy together. Now, do we need to spend every waking moment together? Absolutely not. You'll drive each other crazy, which some of you during this quarantine are probably realizing. And probably some of you are going, yeah, we're spending way too much time together right now because we're stuck in the house together. But in our normal everyday lives, we've got to be very intentional about companionship. We've got to be very intentional about working together. We've got to be very intentional about, in another thing that Eve was called was a helper for Adam. And so as couples, we need to be helpers for each other. We need to be able to, the dream that one of us is striving for, the other one needs to be helping us in that. And there needs to be, as a couple, Adam and Eve was put in the garden to work the garden, to tend the garden, and they did this together. And as couples, we need to have things that we are working for together and being on the same page. It might not necessarily having, the working in the same job together, or having like a business that we're running together, but maybe it's a financial goal that you are on the same page, you are helping each other, and you are working together for that financial goal. And it's not, well, I'm going one direction and not the other. The husband's going one direction financially, and the wife is going another direction, trying to accomplish something totally different. You need to be on the same page, and we need to work together, and we need to be helpers. And what one is striving to do, the other one needs to get in there and help. And this goes for whatever the mission is. Whether the mission is paying off the credit card bills, or the mission is getting the kids to bed, y'all are each other's helpers, and you need to strive together. And part of that companionship is helping each other and being a team and being a companion, or just from raising kids, from paying the bills, from whatever it is. Y'all need to have it figured out. A couple needs to have it figured out where y'all are, as much as you can, working together on the same page and working and being not just a couple that are kind of living two different lives, but you are companions that are going through life together and striving in life together. That is companionship, and that is one of the purposes that God intended marriage for. So the next thing is procreation. So let's look at the verse. and that is Genesis 1:28. This is the other purpose of marriage, pre-sin, pre-fall of man. This is the other purpose of marriage. In verse 28, it says, "Then God blessed them, and God said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish in the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And so here, God is telling Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply. Go have some youngins. Now, this had a different context before the fall of man, because before the fall of man, before sin, whenever Adam and Eve procreated, they created if they would have procreated before the fall of man, they would have created another perfect human being. They would have created another human that did not have the sin curse. They would have created another human being that his job or his person or what he or she was going to do was going to be sinless and just worship God and be this perfect creation. And when God says go and be fruitful, God has commanded us to make believers, make creatures that are going to worship Him. And so after the fall of man, after sin, it takes on a little bit different of a meaning. It don't just mean have babies. It means have babies and raise them into godly men and women. Because before the fall of man, had Adam and Eve procreated before the fall of man, their offspring would have been sinless. Their offspring would not have had the sin curse that human offspring have now. And so they would have created this perfect being. So now after the curse, as we procreate, just having the baby is just the beginning. And after that, that's when the work comes in. That's when we finish off that be fruitful and multiply, is whenever we are training our children to be godly men and women. We are raising our children in that way. And so when you hear, and it breaks my heart to hear this, it breaks my heart to hear a Christian parent go, well, I don't want to make that choice for my child. I'll just let them live their own life and come to their own beliefs. And I was drugged to church when I was a child, and I'm going to let... You know what? No, they're not going to make their own decision. Someone is going to make that decision for them. Someone is going to influence them. Either you influence them and you raise them up, you be fruitful and multiply your faith through your children, or somebody else will. So they will get to college and some college professor will multiply his false doctrine through your children. And he is being fruitful and multiplying his false doctrine or her false doctrine. And so somebody's going to influence your kids. Whether it's you or it's somebody else. Your kids aren't going to find their own way. Someone's going to take them by the hand and guide them. And the Bible commands us as Christian parents, as godly parents, as a couple who is married, that it should be us. We are the ones that are to lead our children in this thing of life. This is how in this day and age we are fruitful and we multiply. As we go to these homeschool conferences, we go to these homeschool conferences and we are with people who are good at this one, and having all 15, having 10, 15 kids, running around everywhere, and when they say go make disciples, I mean they are making disciples, But they be fruitful, multiply, and they are raising up godly kids. They are raising up godly men and women, and it says subdue the earth. And am I saying, hey, you need to have a whole bunch of babies? That's not what I'm saying. Because I'm going to tell you, Tammy and I, 2, and we done. Okay? We are done. And we're going to do the best. We're going to do the best we can to raise them to be as godly as we can, being that there's just going to be 2 of them. But man, that's between you and God of how many kids that you want to be. How fruitful do you want to be as a couple? That's between you and God. But the bottom line, if you are going to have kids, you can't depend on the church to give them everything that they need to be godly. You definitely can't depend on the school. You can't just hope that they become godly. You have to be very intentional about this. You have to be very intentional on raising up godly men and women. And then also, what's really neat about this now is that the meaning of be fruitful and multiply really has more to do with the way we are raising our kids than how many kids that we have. And so what's really cool about this now is if you are in a position where you can't have kids and you're going, you know what, we're going to adopt. And you decide that fostering or adopting is going to be your path. And that is still being fruitful and multiplying, because no, it might not be your seed or your child, but you are being fruitful and multiplying your faith and your belief and your worship in God. You are multiplying that through the children that you have adopted and you have given a home to and you have given parents to. And that's an awesome thing. And that is so commendable, and that is exactly what God is commanding in Him. That's such an honorable thing to do in marriage. So the first purpose of marriage was companionship. The second purpose of marriage is procreation, and those were the two. These were both found before the fall of man. Now the third one is a little bit different, and it is a purpose of marriage that is more specifically for after the fall of man, and this is going to take a little bit explaining, and I'll explain it. But let's go back over here and let's look at this. It's to prevent fornication. All right, and so I'm going to explain what that means. Okay, so how does marriage prevent fornication? This is how. We were created with desires. And marriage gives us a blessed place, an okay place, a place where God has blessed that those desires can be fulfilled. And anywhere outside of marriage is sinful. There is no place where fulfilling those desires outside of marriage is not sinful. And so inside of marriage, that's something that God has given us. They put these desires in us, and then He gave us a ring that we can fulfill those desires inside of those rings. And so that helps us give us a place where we can fulfill those desires without being guilty of fornication, without being guilty of adultery, without being guilty of this. It's a gift that God has given us. Now, the illustration that I've heard time and time again, and I'm going to use it again, except a little bit different, is the fire in the fireplace. It's a fire in the fireplace. If there's a fire, if it's a cold day and you have a fire that's in your fireplace, that's a very good thing. But if that fire gets outside of the fireplace, that's a bad thing. Tammy and I had a pile of limbs that was in our backyard, and I should have burned it last summer, but it was relatively dry last summer. I should have burned it last spring, didn't. It was dry like all summer. Didn't want to burn it during the summer. During the winter, I didn't want to burn it then because I had kind of some limbs over it, and I wanted to make sure that I had like fresh foliage on the limbs, so I didn't like catch the tree on fire or nothing. And so this pile got really big, and the pile got like really, really big, and so this really big pile of limbs, and like I'm not taking this pile down and burning it one at a time or half of it. I'm burning the whole thing. And so the pile of limbs was about as tall as me, and it was kind of under some other limbs that were in a tree, and it was next to a bush. And I really probably should have taken the pile in half and burned it that way. But I didn't. I didn't. My redneck bone said, burn it. Burn it all at once. It'll be all right. And that's what I did. and it was okay. It burnt. Nothing went wrong. It burnt the pile, but there was a couple times that it was getting hairy, and I was worried that it was going to catch the tree on fire in my backyard. I was worried that it might catch the bush on fire that it was next to. Luckily, it didn't. Luckily, I wasn't having to call Lyerly Fire Department out to come put out the tree behind my house. So in that, the fire, as it was burning these limbs, and it was in the little fire pit that I had, and even though it was a big fire, it didn't burn anything else. It didn't catch up to anything else. It was a good fire. Now, had that fire burnt things it wasn't supposed to burn, or gotten out of that fire pit, or caught the tree on fire that it was under, that would have been a really bad thing. That would have been a bad fire. And we don't want bad fires. It was also, I burnt the Christmas tree. And this really has nothing to do. It's just funny. So I burned the Christmas tree from Christmas, and it's been sitting out there drying out for like ever since Christmas. And I knew it was going to burn fast, but this thing caught up like it was like coated in gasoline. It was, and I had the rake, and I was like pushing the rake up and trying to like keep it up on the fire, and it just like it combusted, you know what I mean? And so then I was like trying to pull the rake away from it, and the rake was caught in it, and I just kept like dragging the tree, and I finally just had to throw the rake down because the tree was, as I was trying to pull the rake out and back up, the tree was following me across the yard, so I just had to drop had this huge fireball chasing me. Tammy's like freaking out, and luckily that didn't burn the yard down either, which is good. This is why I did this in spring, and I didn't do this in during the wintertime. And all of y'all are probably like, we're going to have to take the matches away from the pastor. But anyhow, fire, as long as it doesn't get out of hand, is a good thing. But fire, when it gets out of hand, it's a terrible thing. It's a destructive thing. It burns houses down. It burns forests down. It burnt Australia. And so it can be a terrible thing. And that's how these desires are. We have these desires. And as long as the desires are in the fire pit, as long as the desires are in the fireplace, they are good. They are wonderful. They are beautiful. They are blessed by God. It is something that God looks on and says, yes, I bless this. I'm okay with this. I'm good with this. This is something I want you doing. But as soon as those desires, as soon as that fire gets out of that fireplace, as soon as it jumps out and it starts catching other things on fire, and it's really bad. It's bad. It's sinful. It destroys lives. It destroys relationships. It destroys marriages. It can destroy a person from the inside out. And these desires that burn inside of us, God has given us a fireplace. Marriage is that fireplace that God has given us, that is a purpose for marriage, that we can have these desires in a way that is pleasing to God, that God blesses, that God is okay, and we don't, every time we do that, it's not sinful. And that's kind of awkward talking about. Awkward time with Pastor Trey. But anyhow, that's kind of it for tonight. I've really, I've spent most of my time this week kind of doing ministry. We didn't have Hope for the Hungry. We gave out gift cards. That was yesterday. And then today I've spent a lot of time kind of coordinating things for this family. And so the lesson ended up being kind of half as long as what I was originally going to do for the night. But that's okay. Right now, I want to just spend some time in prayer. And again, if you have any prayer requests, go to the bottom of the website and put them there. If you're watching this from YouTube, you can drop prayer requests in the comments in YouTube. If you're watching this on the Facebook page, whenever it gets uploaded on the Facebook page, you can put prayer requests in the comments. Even if it's after the fact, I'll look at it and we'll pray for you. But anyhow, right now, I'm going to go to God and pray, and I want y'all to join me. Lord, we come before you right now, and God, I just want to thank you so much for this time. I just want to thank you so much for the institution of marriage that you have given us. God, thank you so much for your many, many blessings. God, I want to thank you for answering my prayers Sunday night to protect this flock and to protect the people of this church. God, I want to thank you so much for protecting my family. God, I want to thank you so much that we are in a position where we can help people. God, I pray right now that as the weeks go on, God, that you'll give us more and more opportunities to minister, more and more ways that we can help, more and more ways that we can spread your love and spread your gospel through love and through giving and through helping. God, right now, just anything that's on anybody's heart and mind tonight, I pray that you will that you will bless. God, I pray right now that as people are at home, God, I pray that they are keeping themselves safe. God, and I pray for a quick end to this quarantine. God, I pray that we'll be able to gather back together sooner than later. God, I pray that as God, I don't really know everything that you're doing through this, but God, I know you've got a plan and purpose, and I trust you. And I just pray that we can gather together again. I miss my church family. I miss the people that I'm used to seeing on a weekly basis. And God, I pray that I will be able to see them again. Soon we'll be able to gather together again. God, again, we love you. We give you all the honor, glory, and praise. You are a good God and a great God. You are beautiful in all of your ways. God, your creation is amazing. And God, again, just thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you for blessing us. God, again, just keep us as we go. God, I pray a special blessing for each person who watches this. God, we love you. We give you all the honor, glory, and praise. In Christ's name, amen. All right, guys. Well, I hope y'all got something from this. I hope y'all are enjoying this. Once again, if you're not taking advantage of our online giving, you can go to the top of the webpage, hit give. You can give that way. It's actually a lot simpler. It's a lot simpler for you. It's a lot simpler for us if you would like to give that way. And if not, you can mail those their tithes and offerings in to P.O. Box 135, Lyerly, Georgia 30730, and do it that way. Again, if you need anything, you can call me. Call me. If you text me, I'm getting bogged down with text. I'm getting buried with text, so call me. And my phone number, if you don't know my phone number, it's on the website in my bio. If you can call me anytime, and again, leave a message on the Facebook page or in the website. Once again, and if you hear, if any of you hear of a way that we can minister locally, please let me know so that we can kind of pray about and consider that. This is a time that we really need to be helping out our communities and getting in our communities and helping. All right, love y'all. Have a great night. We'll see y'all later. Bye.